My name is Caroline Wilson and I will be officiating some of the proceedings today until we get to the point of appointing a chairperson. But I'd like to firstly hand over to our new Mayor-elect, Mokate Panya, if you'd like to welcome us with a karakia and some words. Thank you.
It's a real privilege of mine to have been able to drive around our beautiful district today to open up our very first community board meetings. I think it's really funny that you will actually get sworn and do your oaths and become elected members before council itself this year. We're waiting until next Thursday, but what's really great about that is that you'll know who your chairperson is so that they can be a part of some of our induction process next week. So I'm going to open us up with the same karakia I did with the other two community boards, and it's a karakia all about kotahitanga, about unity. It's a traditional wairea, and I shared at the other community board meetings that the first time I heard it was when I started at Te Kura Kaupapa Māori o Paikuhea 5 years ago, and the 5-year-old was next to me and looking at me like, don't you know this? No, but I'll learn. So it actually took me a few years because I didn't ever have the words that this karakia you're not allowed to learn it off paper, you need to learn it by listening and actually saying like that. So yeah, it's my privilege to open us up with this karakia. Wairea te ngākau I kaka, wairea te karawaniwani, wairea te hakaro kino te haka ngākau. Wā te rongo mau haka tongia te aroha haka tina hia kia maia kia tūkaha. E kake kia ike ke amioa te whenua rurukutia te mana haka uhia te tikanga o te pōtahitanga. Haumi e, hui e, whārai. Congratulations to you all for being elected to the Te Hiku Community Board. My absolute favourite time on council in the past few years has been on the Kaikuelukianga Community Board, so I really do see the value that this layer has within our communities and within our council. So I'm looking forward to empowering you to empower our communities and our council and make it an even greater place. And I said that yesterday at our whanaungatanga session, and it still rings true today and will still ring true until we actually hit the ground running and action some of those things that we know we want to be able to achieve for community boards. But for now, today is your day, and enjoy the next 3 years, and just know that myself and our Deputy Mayor, Kelly Stratford, will always be here to support you in your over these coming 3 years. Kia ora, tēnā koutou.
Thank you for that. So the order of business will be that I am going to ask in alphabetical order by first name. We're just doing it slightly different district today. To come up and make their declaration, or if they prefer to, they can make an oath on the Bible. The choice is yours. We would like you to read out your oath, because you're swearing in front of your community board members and obviously the people who have elected you to be here today. And then as the Chief Executive's appointed officer, I will witness that for you. Blair wanted to be here today. As you can understand, it is a very busy time. So he's appointed me as his officer today. So first order of roll call in alphabetical order, and Bill, unfortunately, you're William, so you're at the very end. Will be Adele Gardner, please. So it is in Te Reo and English, so you can choose which language you want.
I guess to bring that.
You can
I, Adele Gardner, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interest of the community, the powers, authorities, and duties vested in or imposed upon me as member of the Te Hiku Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
here it is.
I, Darren Carlax, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interest of the Te Hiku community the powers, authorities and duties vested in me or imposed upon as a member of the Te Hiku Community Board by virtue of Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act. Thank you.
John Stewart.
I, John Stewart, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Te Hiku community the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as member of the Te Hiku Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
I, Rachel Lee Balke, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Te Hiku community the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Te Hiku Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
I, Cheryl Bainbridge, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Te Hiku community the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Te Hiku Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
Yeah. Bill.
I, Joseph Zabriskie, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interest of the Te Hiku community the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as member of the Te Hiku Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, and any other act.
Thank you. So I'm hopefully about to hand over the hot seat to somebody else. This is item 6.2 on the agenda, which is the election of a chairperson. 6.1. 6.2. So the recommendation that you will have had in your agenda from yesterday is that you use system B as the preferred voting method, which is a method that you've used before. And then, of course, that you elect your new chairperson. So all those in favour of using system B as the preferred voting system?
Aye.
Do we need a mover and a seconder? Oh, yes, we do. We need a mover and a seconder. This is why I leave it to the experts. Do we have a mover and a seconder for the system B?
Yeah. Second.
Seconder, Bill? Thank you. And they all was unanimous? All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. And a mover and seconder for, no, sorry. Is there any person who has a particular interest in being the chairperson of the Te Hiku Community Board? Show of hands. Adele? Yep. Is there anybody else? No? All those in favour? Do I need to move and second that as well?
So someone will need to move Adele.
Move Adele. Right. You move Adele. Thank you, Cheryl. And Darren will second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. Adele, I'm now going to hand over to the expert. Excuse me. Karen.
I'd just like to say thank you so much for choosing me as your chair. I'll really try my best to the next 3 years and, work together as a board and achieve great outcomes for our communities. So thank you so much. Okay, we're on 6.3, which is the election of deputy chairperson. So we are going to use system B. So I'll move that we use system B. Do I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Okay. So the election of deputy chair, do I have a proposal or a hand show of hands? Who would like to be the deputy?
Would anyone like to move someone as the deputy?
John Stewart.
All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. You're my right-hand person.
So just before we move on to this recommendation, we're going to get interrupt for the presentation as well. So
we'll just have a mover and a second with us and then move it. Okay. So up to 6.4, so which is the explanation of laws affecting elected members. So do I have a mover, please?
Move.
Thank you. And I'll second it, thank you. So
It's on the permission to speak on paper.
Yes, she's just asking for your permission. to
Oh,
come up here.
absolutely, yes, thank you. It should be a PowerPoint. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and congratulations on your elections. Some of you have been with council for some time and some of you are new, so I wish you all the best. My name is Ina Shivalova. I work for Council Legal Services and I have been asked today to, is it okay if I sit? I've been asked today to brief you on the legislative framework that governs the conduct of elected members. And it governs the conduct not only of the local government elected members, but also of the Crown and other government agencies, agents and officials. Local Government Act 2002 sets out principles under which local governments and their CCOs, council control organisations, must operate. And generally the purpose of the local government is to enable democratic decision-making on behalf of its communities and to promote economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being of the communities in the district in the present and in the future or for the future. So the key legislation, there's a lot of legislation that covers lots of things, but the key pieces of legislation that I'll briefly cover today, there are 5 of them. Thank you. Thanks, Morgan. Basically, those pieces of legislation ensure that such decision-making of the local government is made in a transparent, unbiased and an accountable way. Those legislation, the statutory provisions are what we lovingly call LGOIMA, Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, then the Local Authorities Members' Interest Act, Crimes Act, only Part 6 of the Crimes Act, because it's the only relevant part of that Act, Secret Commissions Act 1910, and the Financial Markets Conduct Act. So starting with the first piece of legislation, LGOIMA. LGOIMA applies to any public sector agency, and that includes universities. So it applies to local government agencies as well. It covers custody, availability and release of public information to anyone. And public can be anyone. The request for that information doesn't have to come as a LGOIMA request. It can be just a question. The public can be anyone. It can be a person, a company. It can be an overseas resident. It doesn't have to be in English and it doesn't have to be in writing. So it's really broad. What an interesting act. Whenever people ask me to advise them on legislation, I always like to research the history of legislation to understand why the government felt compelled to enact that legislation. And the history of LGOIMA is quite an interesting one because it goes back to Jeremy Pope and Robert Muldoon. I don't know if many of you will remember those 2 people. Jeremy Pope ended up being Human Rights Commissioner for New Zealand, and he passed away in 2012. And him and Robert Muldoon had a very turbulent relationship. They actually didn't like each other. And because of Robert Muldoon, Jeremy Pope, who was quite a famous lawyer and a writer and an activist, he actually left New Zealand and lived in London until 2005. And then he came back. And so LGOIMA is kind of why I mentioned the Jeremy Pope is because he was the co-founder of an organization called Transparency International. That organization is a charitable organization that's been founded and run by ex-judges, QCs, very famous prominent lawyers and politicians, as well as academics. And Transparency International, what it does on an annual basis, it basically carries out a research of 180 countries in the world, and it produces what they call a CPI. And the CPI stands for Public Sector Corruption Index. And who wants to take a guess where New Zealand sits in that index for the last 5 years out of 180 countries? You want to take a guess? Number 1, it's on par with Denmark and Finland. So it's one of the most transparent countries in the world for democratic accountability, transparency, and the purpose of that act was basically to assist our trade-dependent economy and countries' credit rating for international investments and financial transactions.
So what Lagoima does, in essence, is it promotes accountability and transparency of all government agencies. It instills public confidence and participation of public in government decision-making. The general principle of the Act, it's a big Act, is that all documents and information held by any public agency are publicly available, subject to very limited exclusions. The exclusions, there's not a lot of them, but they're basically a competing public interest to the availability of information. And they include things like prejudice to the maintenance of the law, safety of a person, privacy of a natural person, commercial and trade secrets, confidential and commercially sensitive information, and some other very limited public interest balance exclusions. Part 7 of that Act deals with local authority meetings. And that Part 7 basically says that all information relating to the meetings, including agendas, is public information, should be publicly available to anyone, subject to an exclusion of public. So where your meeting excludes public, that part of that meeting and that part of that agenda is not publicly available information. And as well as all the data and information held or generated in your capacity as an elected member, all of it is discoverable, and that includes your personal devices as well as all electronic and social media platforms. It doesn't have to be on council's record or database. It can be your personal mobile phone. Again, the key word in this is in your capacity as elected members, not your personal capacity. The second piece of legislation that I'll cover today is the Local Authorities Members Interest Act, 1968. It's a very short act. It's only got 9 sections and 3 schedules. When you look at Local Government Act, for example, it's got 314 sections and 20 schedules. And it affects your voting rights and participation in in council decision making. It's got 3 parts that are important. One is that controls the making of contracts worth more than $25,000 in any given financial year between the member and the local authority. Second, it prevents members from discussing and voting on matters in which they have a pecuniary interest or financial interest, other than an interest in common with the public in general. So, for example, when you're voting on something that affects a bigger portion of the public, that includes you, that's okay. But when that portion is very limited or is only confined to you or your immediate friends and family, that is not okay. And the third part is the special provisions in this Act that deal with companies in which you're either a shareholder or you're holding special position of influence or power because of your management position. The penalties under that Act are basically loss of office and criminal prosecutions, and the Office of Attorney General, Auditor General carries out the primary statutory functions under this Act. The third piece of legislation that I will be covering today is the Crimes Act, 1961. Part 6 of that Act is relevant today, deals with bribes and corruption. And under Section 99, elected members or council members are deemed to be officials for the purposes of the Act. Section 105 makes it an offence to seek or obtain a reward, either directly or indirectly, for performing official duties. And Section 105A makes it an offence to use any information acquired or available to a member or an elected member in his or her official capacity to obtain any advantage or gain in any shape or form. Again, the penalty is loss of office and imprisonment of up to 7 years. And this Act falls under the jurisdiction of Attorney General and Police. So they will be the authorities investigating and prosecuting. The fourth piece of legislation for today is Secret Commissions Act 1910. It's a very old Act. Again, it's a short Act, only has 16 sections, no schedules. And it was amended in 2015 to bring it in line with other modern legislation, mainly Crimes Act. It deals with bribery and corruption again. It deals with acting with bias. Bias is just a legal term that means that you're partial or have a close mind or have a predetermined opinion before making a decision. That's what bias means. The Act also deals with showing favour, which is similar to bias. It deals with using your position of power for pecuniary gain or advantage. It deals with not acting in good faith in general. And again, it's administered by the Attorney General and the police. The penalty is same as the Crimes Act and results in the loss of office and imprisonment of up to 7 years. And the last piece of legislation is the Financial Markets and Conduct Act, which essentially is a consumer protection legislation. It creates personal liability in cases where councils issue financial products or obtain funding through financial markets from the public. Personal liability arises where product disclosure statements contain misleading or likely to mislead, so they don't actually have to mislead information. It's unlikely to apply in the case of this council because Far North District Council doesn't raise funds externally. It doesn't usually borrow from the public. So that it's not really, I don't think it would be applicable, but maybe. So in conclusion, before you participate in any council decision making, check that you don't have a financial interest and there is no bias or predetermination on your part. And even if you don't have a conflict, you may have an interest, and conflicts and interests are different things, and all interests must be declared. You probably will get lots of guidance from Caroline and her team on that. And if in doubt, which is okay, seek guidance from our Chief Executive or Mayor, and refer, in the first instance, you can always speak to and refer to your community board liaison, Bev, I think you are. Far North District, even though it's not a small district geographically, it's small district population-wise. So it's very normal and common for people to have conflicts and interests that are declarable because everybody knows everyone, people running businesses, etc., etc. It's okay, as long as you're transparent about it. That's it from me. Oh, just, it's not in this, and I'll probably get in trouble from Caroline, but I'd like to mention something else. It's not in this PowerPoint. Sections 43 and 46 of the Local Government Act. So section 43 is a really important section for you because what it does, it indemnifies certain members for civil liability. It means that the council has to have a professional insurance, what's called professional indemnity insurance, that covers you. So if you get sued, you know, the council's insurance will probably cover you for that and cover you for costs if you successfully defend criminal action as well. Section 46 makes you personally liable for loss that you may have caused personally because of negligence, because of recklessness. You know, there has to be an intent to the council. And that's it from me today. Thank you. Yes. Caroline will cover it, but generally speaking, community board represents the interest of a particular community, geographic community, and brings the issues to the council where appropriate and necessary.
Regarding conflicts of interest, something I asked 3 years ago, like I own a small print company, but it's one of the only companies up here. So you can imagine how many times I get I sit at this table and there's an event that's printing $150, $200 worth of printing. And I can't vote, you know, it's a conflict of interest. I believe it should be like a financial amount, because look, they're only very small amounts, like it's not gonna, it's just something that's been quite frustrating being a local, and I stood out of quite a few funding decisions purely because my printing company is supplying quotes to the people that are applying, but they're very, I'd understand if it was thousands of dollars, but they're very minimal sort of figures. And I always thought that realistically there should be with that conflict of interest, there should be a figure over a certain amount, but I don't know how you can change that now, but that's just an opinion.
good point, and it may be something that we could bring up internally in terms of our code of conduct and internal policies.
But, so there's the threshold obviously of, whether you are providing work on behalf of the community board or council, which is well articulated in the legislation. But when you're providing grants, it's a little less clear, so you're right, that that's something that maybe we need to seek some clarity on. There's nothing overly prescriptive in the legislation that helps with that particular conflict.
And maybe conflict could be defined partially in relation to the quantum of financial gain, like, you know, maybe, and the rest of it could be interest, which are declarable. I don't know. It's an interesting. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just need you to start vote on that.
Sorry.
Vote. That was moved by Bill, seconded by you.
So all in favour of the 6.4 of the laws affecting, thank you. We're on to 6.5, which is noting of Te Hiku Community Board standing orders. I have a mover for this one, please. Yep.
Darren.
Second. Thank you. So this is only just to note the standing orders, and we get to confirm that, adopt it at another meeting, is that
So
right?
staff will be holding a standing orders
Yeah.
training session with you to go through some changes that have been proposed by LGNZ.
Okay.
And then we'll bring the new standing orders to the board at a later date.
Okay. This is just to note the standing orders, so we'll probably still be operating under the old standing orders until we adopt the new ones. So, is that right? Yes. So the workshop is on the 9th of November. And the actual paper to adopt the new standing orders will come at a later date in one of our business meetings. Okay. So all in favour? So Te Hiku, we're on 6.6, which is the Te Hiku Community Board schedule of meetings. So I'll move this one. Do I have a seconder, please?
Aye.
Thank you. We have a meeting on Friday, the 18th of November, which is a business meeting at Te Ahu. It's a Friday. And Tuesday, the 13th of December at 10 a.m. at Te Ahu. So that's our two for the year. And then I guess you'll bring a schedule. We can decide on how we're going to do our meetings, whether it's going to be monthly or 6 weekly at one of those, at that meeting.
The December meeting.
December meeting, is it? Okay. Thank you.
Through the chair. With our meetings throughout the year, is it possible to make sure that we book the Te Ahu as opposed to being pushed everywhere and anywhere? It would be.
So we'll put that as part of the report that you adopt. So we can discuss it offline if there's venues that you're interested in using or not.
Because we could go to different venues.
We do
Yeah.
go to different venues. I mean, when we have these meetings, if we could schedule them.
Yeah.
To Te Ahu, that would be good.
Thank you. Are there any other questions with regards to this? All in favour? Thank you. On to 6.7. What is that there? Oh, so it's a Hiku Community Board Strategic Plan.
Madam Chair, I don't really like this resolution because it doesn't tell you anything too much. And I'd like it to say that the board receives the Te Hiku Community Board Strategic Plan and confirms the resolution to adopt the plan passed at the meeting of the 22nd of September, because we've already adopted it.
So would you just like to change the note to receives?
I would like to say that the Te Hiku Community Board receives the Te Hiku Community Board Strategic Plan 2022-2025 and confirms the resolution to adopt the plan that was passed at the Te Hiku Community Board meeting of 22 September 2022, please.
There's an intention to hold a strategic plan discussion with your induction meetings and to go through that strategic plan and make sure it's still fit for purpose and to allow new members to the board to highlight any other aspects that they would like to see change within the strategic plan prior to it being adopted before December as your plan moving forward. So my recommendation would be that you receive your current strategic plan today and you can make a note that that will be coming to you conducting for a review of adoption.
Have you? Anna?
If that's the advice we're being given, that's what we would go with, I imagine. I don't see personally why we can't confirm the resolution now, but if we do it in December, it's okay.
Okay.
So that receives, not notes, I don't think.
So that's moved by you, Cheryl?
Yep.
And the seconder?
Through the chair, just so I'm clear, it does mean that because of the new members coming in, delegations coming in, Māori board, etc., there will be chance to make sure that that plan is applicable to all of us.
So the strategic plan is a living document.
Yeah.
You certainly have adopted it at a point in time, but you will have the opportunity to refresh that as new information comes to light or a new change of direction comes to light. Absolutely.
Thank you. So,
I second it.
I'll second it. Yep. Okay. All in favour? Thank you. We're nearly there.
That brings us to the end of the agenda.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's the end of the agenda. So who'd like to do a closing prayer? Can you? Thank you. I haven't got my notes with me. Thank you, Kelly.
Madam Chair, sorry.
Oh, there was.
It's through the chair, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank everyone for yesterday. I haven't got my copy here, but I was real disappointed today that when I got the aid, there was no coverage or minimal. It was a historic day. It was a brilliant day. And I think it would be celebrated in the Northern Age. So I just wanted to take that. Thank you.
Do you think Cheryl's done a submission for the plan?
Can
Thank you.
you confirm